Uncle Ron is stuff. I'll post the episode when I put it up on YouTube. And today occurred to me two things that I should share. And one is the path of least resistance, and the other is, well, it didn't matter anyway. I told you I've been watching a master class, and various experts in various fields talk about what they do and how they do. And one of them was a black philosophy professor. And the only reason I mention black is I think he was more used to talking to uh, his uh, his skin color people, and he tailored it somewhat to them, and that was okay. I have no problem with that. It was interesting. He brought in a lot of music as a way of ex- expanding the realm that you can find yourself in, and in the black community, you do have to deal with racism. So there's an aspect that you have to try to get around some way, and he tried to do that with his philosophy and various aspects. Um, and it kind of reminded me what I've been trying to do here. But one thing, and it occurred to me again, is path of least resistance. And it really comes out of electrical stuff for me. I think that's the way I might have heard it the first time. And maybe you've never heard it. I don't know. Path of least resistance. And electricity likes to go from where it's very high potential to the easiest path it can get to back to ground or zero potential, if you will. Anyway, uh, we humans, when we look at doing something or desiring something or needing something or wanting something, uh, I'm not sure we calculated out the best strategy or methodology or path, if you will, to get there, but I think there's a temptation to seek out the path of least resistance. And that is, how can I get what I want with the least amount of work from me? And one way is my car is broken. I'll take it in to somebody else, and they'll fix it. It's path of least resistance. You have to pay them, so you have to eventually work to get the money to pay them to do the job. But initially, at least, it solves the problem, and it's the path of least resistance. So I think we're always considering that when we think about something or do something or want to do something and we want something, the path of least resistance. And that might tie into what I said earlier about herding instincts, where we join groups and we can, the path of least resistance to uh, figure out who you are or what you represent, perhaps to the rest of the world. One way to do that, path of least resistance, is you join a group that has various attributes and so on that you either like, or maybe you don't have any choice in the matter and you have to go with this group or that group, and so you pick the lesser of two evils. But nonetheless, it's a sort of a path of least resistance, as opposed to being a loner where you have to sort of figure it all out on your own, and that's no fun. And people want to be a part of some sort of group, a team maybe, a group, and identify with their particular beliefs and practices and procedures. But the path of least resistance, it is a temptation to do that. And what happens to me is I've got to do something or another in the real world or otherwise. And first thing comes to mind, well, okay, well, what's the shortcut? What's the easy way to do it? And I'll see it, and then I go, yeah, I know, but the other way is so much work. You know, I don't really it's going to take all this amount of work to go the other way. And so the path of least resistance is to do this. And invariably, if I see in advance that it really does need all that work, but I don't go there to start with, I wind up there in the end anyway. Hopefully, all the path of least resistance work was not in vain. It did something I could use out of it when I finally had to bite the bullet and do it, all the work that was required. So maybe you have it, maybe you don't. When you go to do something or think about something, or like doing your homework at night, and path of least resistance. Well, I'll look up the answers in the back of the book. I get stuck on a problem instead of trying to sort it out and think it out and whatever. I'll go look up the answer, or maybe I'll go on the internet and see if I can find something there that helps me solve the problem. And that's okay. I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying that uh, uh, being aware that the path of least resistance is a very strong temptation on just about anything. If you have an understanding of the magnitude of the problem and you realize it's going to be a big magnitude and you don't want to do it, then you take the path of least resistance. And the path of resistance comes into all sorts of play, especially in human relationships. The path of least resistance. What is the minimum? I was watching a physics guy again, and he has a whole course on theoretical minimums. You know, well, you get these equations and whatever, but logically, you can't put infinity in at one end or you can't put zero in at the other, because the equations won't play that way. So you have to come up with, okay, well, what is the boundary of the problem? And when you have a problem, I don't care what it is, dealing with a friend or trying to make a horseshoe, uh, you might see the magnitude of the issue. You may not, but invariably you got to do something, and you'll probably start with the path of least resistance, the minimum amount of effort you think to accomplish whatever it is that you want. And I think that's maybe the key is minimum amount of effort. We're geared to that, I mean, and that's okay. I understand. Uh, the other thing is it didn't matter anyway. And I don't like that. That's a attitude, a mind state, something that you can get into, and it is bad. I think I said in one of the other episodes that don't ever quit. Stop, take a break. I mean, go away for 5 years, but don't quit. Transfer. I don't know anything other than quitting, and quitting is where you give up. I'm done. I'm not doing anymore. You quit. You quit on anything. You quit on your marriage. You quit on life. I mean, I don't. I'm done. Quitting is bad. Really hard the first time. Not quite as hard the second time. Third time, well, and the fourth time, well, it didn't matter anyway. It's that attitude. It didn't matter anyway. If you go into anything with that attitude, you're going to get exactly, you're not going to get a whole lot because you're not putting a whole lot into it. It costs a lot to win. It costs even more to lose. If you're not going to play the game to the best of your ability and commit all the way, don't play it. Don't do it. I mean, if you do, you'll wind up with all kind of mixed results, and then you'll take that as well. That's just who I am, or I failed, or I made a mistake, or I don't know. But don't quit, and don't start that attitude. Well, it didn't matter anyway. People like you come up to bat in baseball, you strike out. Well, your team's already ahead by 3 runs. So it didn't matter anyway that I missed, that I didn't get a hit. Didn't matter. Well, that infiltrates into everything. You know, it didn't matter anyway because there's no consequences of it. It was like, I didn't get a hit, but so what? We're still in the head. Um, you didn't help your team. You might feel bad about that, but well, it didn't matter anyway. And don't start that. Be aware of that issue. That you gotta, if you're gonna go, you gotta go in. You know, there's no way halfway about jumping in a pool if you can't swim. You're gonna have to figure something out. There's no halfway about it. You swim or you drown. And a lot of people have been taught how to swim by having somebody throw them in a pool. It does matter. It doesn't matter anyway. Is a bad mind state to adopt. You don't want to do that. And, you know, okay, label it. Politicians are good at doing that. They don't use that phrase. They have some other phraseology. It means the same thing, but it sounds so much better, you know. And you could probably find something else in your thought process that means the same as, well, it didn't matter anyway, but doesn't sound quite so bad. Yeah. And I don't know what that'd be because I can't think of one right away, but doesn't matter anyway. Stay away from that. Don't go there. Don't start that. It gets easier and easier. If once you started it, it's like quitting. It gets easier and easier, and something's got to matter sometime, right? I mean, what really does matter for you? And you got to go all in on that. You can't do half measures, and it really does matter. And that's not to say that you can try all you got, all your strength, all of your mind, everything that you can bring to the table, and plus some, and still not win. Okay, that happens. That's life, you know. But to demean it by saying, "Well, it didn't matter anyway," that's a demeaning. It demeans your effort. Now, if you didn't put any effort in, well, but don't do that. Start off with don't take the path of least resistance. Even though you see what's really fully required, you take the path of least resistance anyway, and then the results don't turn out like you expect, and you say, well, it didn't matter anyway. Uh, I, I don't know what these are. Mind states. I don't know. Everybody has them. I keep questioning that stuff. Perhaps if I were in a class of people, I could pose that question and see what people said. But it does matter. If you're doing it, it must have mattered. Now you got to do a lot of things you don't want to do. I understand that. You got to go to school and you have to learn this and learn that. Not very exciting. It can be even boring. Okay, but you're there and you need to put in effort. If you don't put in effort, you're going to get out sort of some ratio of what you put in. Maybe not 100%, but then maybe you weren't prepared for it with your experiences. Like I talked about authors and books. You can read a book from a famous author, and you may not get all that he put in there because you just didn't have enough experiences to recognize it and formulate a thought off of that. Says, oh yeah, one of the weird books is off the side issue, but made an impact on me was called Lolita, and it was banned for a long time. It was one of those books I got to read it to figure out what it's banned. Why is it banned? And it was basically about this older man. I don't know how old he was. I picture maybe in his 30s, 40s. I don't know, something in there. And he was in love with like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. I don't know, something like that. I don't remember any sexual component to it. It probably was, and that's what got it banned, but maybe not. Maybe the point was that a 30 or 40-year-old man, there's no possible way he could be in love with a 12-year-old girl or a 13-year-old girl. And that's just terrible, nasty, people that shouldn't think like that at all. You shouldn't even accept the concept that somebody could do that. And I think that's why it was banned. But it opened up that there are people that have proclivities. They have, I didn't look at them as damaged in some way. I looked at them like I don't understand, how he necessarily could do this, but if he found it there, I was okay with it. I mean, again, I can't remember any sexual component, and that sort of made it okay. Now, perhaps it was there, and I just overlooked it because that was a part that I didn't understand at all, and so I didn't get it. Now, if I were to reread it today, perhaps I would in some fashion, but that would the general consensus is you don't want to think like that. You don't want to get it. You don't want to understand and whatever. And I agree with that at a point. The other point is that he was speaking from where he was, and I should be able to learn something out of it, if nothing else, from a person who's way out there from where I am. Uh, but passive least resistance. Um, Sometimes you have to do it because there's time associated with it. You know, you got to get on it right now and do it right now, and therefore you're gonna probably take the path of least resistance. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that it is a temptation to do it when you know in your heart of hearts that isn't really going to cut it. You know there's a lot more to the job than that, to the process, to that, to the relationship of that. But you start off with that. Doesn't matter anyway. Don't even go there. Don't even start saying that phrase. Don't accept it with others. It's like, don't judge them. I mean, unfortunately, once it grabs hold of you, it's really hard to change an attitude like that. It demeans what you did. It demeans what another person did or tried to do. Well, it didn't matter anyway. Well, it's like, why'd you even try? What's the point of that? It's demeaning. It's demeaning to everybody involved, and especially the person who utters it. So that's enough for today. I don't even know if it recorded. I needed a break from moving dirt, so here I am again. And uh, doesn't matter anyway, and the path of least resistance.